Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make Pecan Sablé Cookies, and this is what they look like. This is a French butter cookie, and they are buttery, rich, with the flavors of toasted pecans and just a hint of cinnamon, and the texture is so wonderful. It's crisp and crumbly, just a really nice tasting cookie. So the first thing we will need to do is to toast our pecans. So preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius, and you will need 1 cup, which is 100 grams of pecans, and put them on a baking sheet and put them in the oven for about 6 to 8 minutes until they're lightly brown and you can start to smell the pecans, and then take them out. And I've already done that step, and this is what they look like, and let the pecans cool completely. And then what we're going to do is finely chop them. Now you can do it if you have a food processor, which I do. I'm going to do it in the food processor, but if not, just a cutting board with a sharp knife and just finely chop them. Either way. And this is a step that you could do ahead of time, you know, even the day before if you want. So let's put them in there. And now when you're using a food processor, you know, watch them. You don't want them to turn, if you process them too much, they will actually turn into a paste. So just, you know, be mindful of that. If you have a few larger pieces of pecans, don't worry, just makes cookies better. So I'm just going to put this in a bowl, and then we will be right back, and we'll start our batter. So now for our batter. If you have a stand mixer like I have here, use your paddle attachment. You could use a hand mixer, or really for this cookie, we're just mixing all the ingredients together. We don't want to incorporate a lot of air because this type of cookie is very dense in texture. So you could just do it by hand in a large bowl with a wooden spoon. The first thing you will need is 14 tablespoons, which is 200 grams of butter. Have your butter at room temperature. I'm using unsalted butter. I like the flavor of unsalted, plus that way I can control the amount of salt in the recipe, but you can use salted butter and then just leave out the salt in the recipe. Now, today, this is a butter cookie. There's not a lot of, you know, different flavors. So I am using if you live in the States, what is called a European style butter, which really translates into higher fat content, which means we'll have a real nice buttery flavor to our cookie, and it also helps with the crisp and kind of crumbly texture. So if you want to use that, I mean, you can use just your regular butter. It'll still taste fantastic, but for a treat, you can use the European style. So now what I'm going to do is just beat this on medium-low speed just until it's nice and smooth. Okay, and as always, when you're making any kind of batter, you know, periodically scrape down the sides and the bottom of your bowl, especially the bottom. You want to make sure all your ingredients get mixed together. So next, we are going to add 2/3 of a cup, which is 135 grams of granulated white sugar, along with 1.5 teaspoons, 6 grams of pure vanilla extract. And then I'm just going to beat this on medium speed just until everything's mixed together. Again, I don't want to incorporate a lot of air because we want a really nice, dense, textured cookie. Okay, so it's all mixed together. And now we're going to add 1 large egg. That's 50 grams out of the shell. And have your egg at room temperature. Just going to put that in there. And again, beat it on medium speed just until it's all mixed in. Okay, so we're done. That. So now for our dry ingredients, in a separate bowl I have 2 cups, which is 260 grams of all-purpose flour, plain flour. To that I'm adding just a half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. I don't know, the pecans with the just a touch of cinnamon really makes a wonderful flavor. And then I'm adding a half a teaspoon, 2 grams of kosher salt. Like I said at the beginning, if you used salted butter, I would just leave out that salt. And then I'm just using a wire whisk. You just use a fork, spoon, mix that together. No baking powder. Again, as I've said, we want a dense textured cookie, so we don't want any of baking soda, baking powder. So now I'm just going to add all the flour along with our toasted pecans, yum. And beat this slowly. I don't want it coming up in my face here, just until everything's mixed together. Okay, we are done. That wasn't too hard. So now what we're going to do like a slice and bake cookie. So we're going to roll this into a log shape. You can roll it round, rectangle, square, form it into whatever shape you want. And if you wanted to, I'm sure someone will ask, could you make this into a cutout cookie? Yes, you could. You could just divide the dough in half like we're going to do, and then roll it between 2 sheets of either wax paper or parchment paper, and then chill it, and then cut the cookies out that way if you want. So I am going to divide this in half, which would be 300, I mean, you can just put it on the counter and eyeball it, but I'm going to be precise here. 375 grams per half. Okay. And then on a lightly floured surface, I'm just using all-purpose flour. Put this. I'm going to roll it into, I'm going to do a round today, 6 inches in length, 15 centimeters for each one. If you're, like, the dough is soft, but I could still roll it. If yours was really soft, then you could just pop it into the refrigerator for just a little, maybe 15 minutes until you can roll it. Now, when you're doing a round, what typically happens, the dough is soft. Once I roll it up, and if I put it into the refrigerator, it's going to kind of sink down, flatten a bit. So what I do is I do my initial round, and then I put it in the fridge, and then maybe a half an hour later, I check it. If it's getting a little firm, I take it out and I can roll it to get that, a nice circle. Otherwise, which is fine, you tend to maybe have like an oval shape. But if you were like giving these as a gift or something, you want that perfectly round, that's how you get it. So this is, it's about 6 inches. So like I said, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it in the fridge and then take it out in a little bit and get it into that really nice round. So I'm not going to be too fussy right now. And then just take some plastic wrap, or you could use, parchment, wax paper, and just roll it up. And then, like that, I'm going to put it into the refrigerator. And then you want this to be, we're going to slice it and bake it off. So you want this nice and firm. So I would say several hours. You could even leave it overnight. Or actually, this is a great do-ahead. I could put this, once I get the shape I want, put it into the freezer and just freeze it. And then you can just, defrost it and slice and bake. And you could freeze this for, about a month. So that's what I'm going to do. And then when we come back, we will slice and bake our cookies. So now we are ready to slice and bake our cookies. So preheat your oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 165 degrees Celsius. Then you'll need a baking sheet, line it with parchment paper like I've done here, or you could lightly butter it or even oil it or spray it with one of those non-stick sprays. So now, like I said, you want your log to be really chilled. A lot of times what I do is if I'm going to make them right away, I do let this chill overnight. That way I make sure it's really cold. So, kind of almost a circle, maybe a little oval shape, but the best I could do. And then when you typically the ends are not perfect, so what you want to do is slice that off. And then what I'm going to do is slice the cookies, which I've already done most of them, into 1/4 inch thick slices, which is about 1/2 centimeter. So, like I said, what I first do is just to even up, I just cut off the end. For myself, I usually bake that off, and then that would be for me. And then I use a ruler, and I just make a little notch, and then sharp knife and slice down like so. And that's how I do it. What's good is you can, like this is a 6-inch log, which will give us at 1/4 inch, 24 cookies. So this is about, say if you have the ends, maybe 45 to 48 cookies. And the thing is, you can just slice and bake 12, like I'm doing here, and then wrap this back up, put it in the fridge or in the freezers, so you can kind of have them bake on demand. Now what we're going to do, I don't know whether you know, the cookies have a really nice shiny top, so we're going to do an egg wash. So 1 large egg, 50 grams, have your egg at room temperature, and I'm going to add just 1/2 tablespoon of cream. I'm just using like a 1/2 and 1/2. You could use a light cream, you could use a heavy cream. You could really just use milk, because it's just thinning it out. Of course, the higher the fat, right? More taste. And then you will need a pastry brush. And I'm going to lightly brush the tops with the egg wash. Now, if you wanted like a really extra shiny top, sometimes what I do is I do 1 coating, I let the egg wash sit for a few minutes, and then I brush them again. I'm not going to do that today. So I'm going to show you. Now, you could just leave them plain. I often do. Or you could take like some pecan halves that I have toasted, and you can put it right in the center of the cookie. The good thing about that is when people look at it, they know, oh, that's a pecan cookie. So they don't have to taste it to know, they can just look at it. Sometimes what I do is take some finely chopped pecans, like we did. I'll do a little, when we did it at the beginning, we finely ground them. I just do a little extra for the tops of cookies. I think that looks really pretty. And sometimes I leave them plain, or you could even put some coarse white or brown sugar on there. That's really nice. What I like is kind of like you get 3 different cookies out of 1. So I'm just gonna finish this off. Okay, so I forgot to say, when you're putting either the pecan halves or even the finely chopped, and then once you put them on there, just kind of lightly press the nuts into the cookie so they'll adhere. So now to bake our pecan cookies. We want these to be like a real golden brown. The longer you bake them, the more that crisp and crumbly, which is just fantastic. So I'm going to say 20 minutes. And you want to rotate your baking sheet front to back about halfway through. But like I said, you want them a real nice golden brown, which I will show you what you're looking for when they come out. Okay, so our cookies are ready. So put your pan on a wire rack. Don't they look pretty? as you can see, they're golden brown. That's what you're looking for. And we put that egg wash on. Not only does it give a nice shine to our cookies, but it also aids in browning as well. So I just think they look, I like the difference where you put the whole pecans and then some chopped pecan and then just plain. So what I'm going to do is let them cool completely in the pan, and then I'll use my spatula to transfer them over to a wire rack. So once they cool down, we'll come back and try one. So let's try one. I'm going to try the one with the finely ground pecans on there, or pecans. The texture, first I'll talk about the texture. It is crisp and it is crumbly. Really, really nice texture to it. And then of course you have the toasted pecans, just that hint of cinnamon, and then of course lots of butter, so they're buttery rich. You know, for a cookie, it's a simple, what I would call simple cookies. You don't have a lot of like chocolate chips and lots of nuts and dried fruit, all of that. Just a very plain, simple cookie. It's all about the flavor and the texture. And like I said, I like them even when they're plain looking, just with the sheen on the top, very nice. But of course, decorate them, it's good too. I kind of like when you do them like the 3 different ways. Gives people choices. So these will keep probably a week if you store them at room temperature. Again, you could, once they're baked, you could freeze them, or like I said, you can bake the log off before you bake, which is really a nice do-ahead if you wanted to, like for Christmas or something like that. So you must try this cookie. And until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.